Hey guys, so I wanted to make this video about the Zippers 468 cam because when I was looking at buying one, I had to sift through a lot of bullshit on the internet, and I never was really able to nail down a few factors about the cam that really interested me. So one of my main concerns when buying a cam was the rideability, not necessarily just the peak torque and peak power numbers that everyone always raves about, but more the area under the graph of the torque curve and how it would affect being on the bike. So anyway, let's get into it. So back in July, about 12 months ago, a friend of mine and myself actually dropped the cam into the hog, and then I had the Vance & Hines Pro Pipe on the bike, which is what I bought it with, and I was blown away by the performance of the cam and the pipe itself. It was a perfect combination. The torque curve, we had a slight dip at around 2,000 RPM, and then it just climbed all the way up through the mid-range. And I'll show you those graphs a little bit later on. But overall, much more aggressive power delivery, and it wasn't lacking in any area. So I'd ridden I think it was a Lowrider S with a 475 S&S cam in it, and I felt as though that was very lacking in the low end, which is not what I wanted at all. So this was right after we bolted the cam in and got it sent off for a tune with the Pro Pipe on it. You can see there's a little bit of a dip in torque there, which is to be expected with pretty much most exhausts. But it pulled strong all the way up through the mid-range, before it started to dive off into the top end there. Now, this cam and this pipe work perfectly together in my motor. I was really happy with the amount of torque it had in the mid-range, which is pretty much where you're riding, especially if you're out in the hills doing the twisties and stuff like that. It's good to have the mid-range power, and I didn't feel like it was definitely not lacking at all from where it was at stock. So if we're going to talk peak numbers, I take this with a grain of salt because every dyno is different, and these guys actually even include a dyno jet correction because they have resistance on their roller in the dyno, whereas the dyno jet dynos do not. With the Vance & Hines Pro Pipe, we're able to achieve a peak power of 101 horsepower at 5575 RPM and a peak torque of 116 foot-pound at 3379. That's basically what I was after. I didn't want to have a camshaft that was going to be trading off a lot of power in the top end and then fuck all in the bottom. Useless to me. The whole reason I bought a nearly 2 litre pushrod V-twin is to have torque down low off the line. I don't really like revving the fuck out of the engine to get it to move. It's just not how I ride. Now about 2 months after I installed the cam and got it tuned up and everything, I had an accident. And when we totaled the pipes on the side of the bike. So as part of the repair process, the dealership said unfortunately that they couldn't source the Vance & Hines Pro Pipe anymore, and they said to pick a different one. So me, unknowingly and stupidly, opted for the Vance & Hines Big Shots, and that was a mistake because they are dog shit. So when I picked it up from the dealership, I was greeted with this. This is the dyno result. Now, in the yellow there, we can see the old Vance & Hines Pro Pipe, and with the new Big Shots, we can see this huge dip in power here. So I'm telling you, I went to every length of the earth to try and figure out maybe it was an issue with the tuning, maybe there was something else wrong, and apparently no. This is just the amount of difference that an exhaust pipe can make, and I was blown away by it. Now, everyone talks about 2-into-1s having better performance and whatnot, but again, you got to take everything you read on the internet with a grain of salt. But this is my proof that the exhaust pipes can make a huge difference to power output. But again, what our concern is actually this dip here, because the area under the graph, that whole area under there, is what's going to dictate, how hard the bike's pulling. Basically, it's not just little peaks. Now, again, I wasn't overly concerned with the peak numbers. They were a little bit less than when I had the Pro Pipe on there, but the rideability was terrible, and is terrible currently. So when we, when we're out in the hills and we're giving it to it, not having that mid-range power, it makes the world of difference. For the first few weeks after picking the bike up, I'd shift up to the next gear, land at about 3,000 revs, and fucking nearly get thrown over the handlebars. Like, it was night and day difference. So this has led me to the next chapter of my build adventure. I've actually just reached out to a friend of mine who makes custom performance parts, and he's going to work on an exhaust for me to try and see if we can't negate that dip and get her back where she needs to be. Anyway, I'll include a couple of videos in the end of how the bike sounds, and you can have a listen to it. But hopefully this has shed a little bit of light on the rideability and the torque curve of the Zippers 468 cam. Thanks.